The observation deck of Concordia's Rest hummed with excited chatter. Dozens of alien species pressed against the reinforced windows, their various forms creating a rainbow of colors and shapes. Some floated in specialized atmosphere suits, others stood on multiple legs, and a few existed as pure energy contained in crystalline shells. Ambassador Lexara of the Galactic Council adjusted her translation device and addressed the gathering crowd. Her blue skin shimmered as she spoke to the assembled representatives. "Today, we witness history," she announced. "The final battle between two of our galaxy's oldest civilizations. The Kethmoran Empire and the Velthari Confederation have agreed to settle their ancient dispute once and for all." Through the massive windows, two enormous fleets faced each other across the void. The Kethmoran ships looked like giant beetles made of black metal, their surfaces covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays. Each vessel was perfectly symmetrical, designed for maximum efficiency in battle. Their formation was precise, with larger ships at the center and smaller fighters arranged in perfect geometric patterns. On the other side, the Velthari fleet glowed with soft energy. Their ships appeared to be made of crystalline material that pulsed with internal light. They moved in flowing formations, like schools of fish swimming through space. Energy fields connected their vessels, creating a network that sparkled against the stars. "The Kethmoran have superior numbers," observed Dr. Zeflon, a tentacled creature from the academic collective. "But the Velthari possess technology that defies conventional understanding. This should be fascinating to analyze." Other observers nodded in agreement. Many had traveled from distant star systems to witness this battle. Some took detailed notes for historical records. Others placed bets on the outcome using complex probability calculations. "Both civilizations have been fighting for over 3,000 years, explained Ambassador Lexara. Their conflict began over mining rights to a distant nebula, but has grown into something much larger. Today, they hope to end it with honor." A young reporter from the Spiral News Network raised one of her four arms. "What about the safety protocols? Surely civilian ships should clear the area." "Both fleets have agreed to standard combat rules," Lexara replied. "No targeting of neutral vessels, no weapons that could damage nearby star systems, and immediate cessation of hostilities if evacuation ships enter the battle zone." The crowd murmured approvingly. Galactic warfare had become quite civilized over the millennia. Rules existed for everything, from acceptable weapon types to proper formation flying. Wars were fought with honor and respect for ancient traditions. A cod with honor and respect for ancient traditions. Small commotion near the back of the observation deck caught everyone's attention. A creature that looked remarkably similar to the station's maintenance staff was trying to get through security. "I have proper documentation," the being said in accented galactic standard. "My ship requested observation privileges." The security officer, a large reptilian with official markings, looked confused. "You're human, correct? From the Sol System?" "That's right. Captain Sarah Chun of the U East Defiance. We received approval from the Galactic Council to observe this engagement." Several aliens in the crowd turned to stare. Humans were relatively new to galactic society, having only achieved faster-than-light travel about 200 years ago. Most species considered them primitive and uninteresting. "A human warship?" laughed Commander Vestai of the Hegemony Fleet. His insect-like head clicked with amusement. "I wasn't aware Earth had developed anything worthy of the name." Captain Chun's face remained calm, but her dark eyes showed a flicker of something the aliens couldn't quite identify. "We do our best with what we have." Through the windows, a small ship became visible in the distance. Compared to the massive fleets preparing for battle, it looked tiny and unremarkable. The human vessel had a crude, boxy appearance with visible weapon ports and communication arrays bolted to its hull. It looked like something built in a hurry rather than designed for elegance. "Is that your ship?" asked Dr. Zeppelin, peering through a specialized viewing device. "It appears to be constructed from multiple different materials." "The Defiance has been through a lot," Chum replied simply. "She's reliable." The other observers exchanged glances. The human ship looked like a collection of spare parts welded together. Its hull showed signs of repair work, and its energy signature was barely detectable on their instruments. "How many crew members?" inquired Ambassador Dexara, more out of politeness than genuine interest. 47, Chun answered. "Fascinating," muttered Commander Vextai. "Most of our observation vessels carry at least 300 personnel." Chun didn't respond to the obvious criticism. Instead, she moved closer to the windows and watched the two fleets with intense concentration. Her eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of ship positions, formation patterns, and weapon configurations. The Cathmoran fleet began broadcasting their traditional war chants, filling the communication channels with rhythmic sounds that resonated through their insectoid vocal cords. It was an ancient ritual, meant to honor their ancestors and intimidate their enemies. The Valthari responded with harmonious energy pulses that created beautiful light patterns across their ships. Their method of psychological warfare was based on demonstrating their technological superiority through displays of precise control. "Both sides are following standard pre-battle protocols," observed Dr. Zeppelin. "This should proceed according to established patents." Captain Chun said nothing, but continued studying the fleets with an expression that made some of the other observers uncomfortable. There was something predatory about the way she watched, as if she was seeing things they couldn't understand. The Cathmoran flagship, a massive vessel called the Death's Honor, moved forward slightly. Its commander was broadcasting challenges in the ancient language, demanding honorable combat according to traditional rules. The Volthari flagship, known as the Light of Eternal Wisdom, responded with complex mathematical equations that somehow conveyed both acceptance of the challenge and confidence in victory. "The preliminary rituals are nearly complete," announced Ambassador Dexara. "Combat should begin within the hour." Captain Chun finally spoke. "What about civilian evacuation protocols?" "Standard procedures are in place," Dexara replied, slightly puzzled by the question. "Both fleets have agreed not to target non-combatant vessels." "Why do you ask?" "Just curious about local customs," Chun said, but something in her tone made several of the observers look at her more carefully. The human captain continued watching the fleets, and for the first time, some of the aliens noticed that her ship had moved slightly closer to the battle zone dot in the distance. Both fleets completed their ritual preparations and began moving into combat positions. The greatest military engagement in recent galactic history was about to begin, and everyone expected it to follow the time-honored traditions of civilized warfare. None of them had any idea what they were really about to witness. The first shots of the battle lit up space like deadly fireworks. The Cathmoran fleet opened fire with their plasma cannons, sending streams of superheated energy toward the Volthari formation. The crystalline ships responded by raising their energy shields, creating walls of pure force that absorbed the attacks and scattered them harmlessly into space. "Excellent defensive positioning," commented Dr. Zeppelin, making notes on his datapad. "The Volthari are using the classic deflection formation. Very textbook." On the observation deck, the assembled aliens watched with professional interest. This was exactly what they had expected to see. Both fleets were following established galactic warfare doctrine, using proven tactics that had been refined over thousands of years. The Volthari counterattacked with focused energy beams that struck the Cathmoran ship's armor plating. The insectoid vessels absorbed the hits, their thick black hulls glowing cherry red where the beams made contact. Neither side had taken significant damage, but both were testing their opponent's defenses. Classic opening engagement, observed Commander Vextai. Both sides are being cautious, probing for weaknesses before committing to major attacks. Captain Chun stood quietly near the window, watching the battle with the same intense focus she had shown earlier. Her ship, the Defiance, maintained its position at the edge of the engagement zone, apparently content to observe from a safe distance. Ambassador Vexara activated her communication device to provide commentary for the historical record. Hour 1 of the engagement shows both fleets maintaining standard formation integrity. The Kethmoran are using their traditional hammer and anvil approach, while the Velthari employ their signature energy web tactics. The battle continued in predictable patterns. The Kethmoran ships advanced in tight formations, their weapons firing in coordinated volleys. The Velthari vessels moved like dancers, flowing around the attacks and striking back with precision energy weapons. It was beautiful in its deadly choreography. Several smaller alien vessels had positioned themselves around the battlefield to get better viewing angles. Representatives from news organizations broadcast live coverage to their home worlds. Military observers from various species took detailed notes on weapon effectiveness and tactical innovations. The Kethmoran are preparing for their famous charge. Maneuver, announced a military expert from the Confederation of Peaceful Worlds. This has been their preferred tactic for over 2 millennia. Sure enough, the insectoid ships began forming into a massive spear formation, with their heaviest vessels at the tip. This was a classic Kethmoran strategy, designed to punch through enemy lines through sheer concentrated force. The Velthari recognized the Vestasias recognized the Vestiager, the many lines, through sheer concentrated force. The Velthari recognized the Vunsidid Fuyurist demand to Vunsduli, many lines through sheer formation and began their own countermeasure. Their ships spread out into a wide net, preparing to envelope the charging enemy and attack from multiple directions simultaneously. Fascinating, murmured Dr. Zeflin. Both sides are executing maneuvers straight from the Academy textbooks. This battle could be used as a perfect teaching example. Captain Chun finally moved away from the window and walked over to a communication terminal. She activated a private channel and spoke quietly into the device. Marcus, what's your analysis? The response came through her earpiece, audible only to her. Both fleets are operating within predicted parameters, Captain. Their tactical systems appear to be approximately 300 years behind current human military theory. Weapon systems? Standard energy-based armaments with kinetic backup systems. Their targeting computers rely heavily on predictive algorithms. No evidence of adaptive countermeasures or psychological warfare protocols. And their command structure? Highly centralized. All tactical decisions appear to be made by flagship commanders and transmitted through standard communication channels. Very vulnerable to disruption. Chun nodded and closed the channel. She returned to the window, but now her expression had changed slightly. Where before she had looked interested, now she appeared to be calculating something. The Kethmoran charge began in earnest. Their massive ships accelerated toward the Velthari formation, weapons blazing. The crystalline vessels responded by creating overlapping energy fields, trying to slow down the attackers and break up their formation. Magnificent, breathed Ambassador Vexara. This is warfare as art. Look at the precision of those formations. The observers watched in fascination as the two ancient tactics clashed. The Kethmoran spear formation hammered against the Velthari energy web, neither side giving ground easily. Ships on both sides took damage, but their shields and armor held. This could continue for hours, predicted Commander Vextai. Both sides are too evenly matched for a quick resolution. Behind the main battle, several civilian evacuation ships had appeared near the edge of the system. These were automated vessels designed to rescue any non-combatants who might get caught in the crossfire. Their presence was a standard safety precaution, and both fleets had agreed to leave them alone. Captain Chun noticed the evacuation ships and activated her communication device again. "Marcus, scan those evacuation vessels." "Scanning now, Captain." "I'm detecting approximately 2,000 civilian refugees from various species. They appear to be inhabitants of the outer mining colonies who were unable to evacuate before the battle began. Are they in danger?" "Not currently, but their position could become problematic if the battle expands beyond the current engagement zone." Chun looked at the tactical displays more carefully. The fighting was gradually moving closer to the evacuation ships as both fleets maneuvered for advantage. It was a slow drift, probably unnoticed by the commanders who were focused on defeating their opponents. "Interesting," Chun said quietly. On the main battlefield, the Kethmoran charge finally broke through part of the Velthari formation. Several crystalline ships were forced to retreat, their energy shields depleted. But the Velthari quickly reformed their lines and began a coordinated counterattack. "The tide is turning," announced Dr. Zeflin. "The Velthari superior technology is beginning to show its advantage." The energy beings' ships began linking their power systems together, creating a massive energy network that glowed brighter than a small star. This was their ultimate weapon, a collective energy pulse that could devastate entire fleets. The Kethmoran recognized the threat and immediately changed tactics. Their ships spread out into a defensive formation, trying to minimize the damage from the coming energy attack. "Both sides are now committed to their final strategies," observed Ambassador Dexara. "The next few minutes will determine the outcome of this ancient conflict." Captain Chun stepped away from the crowd of observers and walked to another communication terminal. This time, she activated the ship-wide communication system of the Defiance. "All hands, this is the captain. Prepare for combat operations. I want ghost protocols ready to activate on my command. All drone squadrons to launch positions. And someone get me a direct line to both fleet commanders." Our crew's responses came back immediately, crisp and professional. Unlike the formal, ritualized communications of the alien fleets, the human responses were quick and practical. "Captain," came a voice from her tactical officer. "Both alien fleets are jamming all communication frequencies except their own command channels." "Then we'll have to get their attention another way," Chun replied. "Helm, take us into the combat zone. Maximum stealth approach." On the observation deck, several aliens noticed that the human ship was moving. The small, crude-looking vessel was approaching the battlefield at an angle that would take it directly into the line of fire between the two massive fleets. "What is that human doing?" asked Commander Vex Tai, pointing at the Defiance. "Doesn't she realize she's heading into a combat zone?" Ambassador Dexara tried to contact the human ship, but received no response. The Defiance continued its approach, apparently oblivious to the danger. "Should we warn the fleet commanders?" asked Dr. Zeflin. A small ship like that could be destroyed by accident. But Captain Chun was no longer on the observation deck. She had returned to her ship, leaving the alien observers to wonder what the humans thought they were doing. Defiance continued its approach toward the battlefield, where two ancient civilizations were about to unleash their ultimate weapons against each other. The bridge of the UES Defiance looked nothing like the elegant command centers of the alien fleets. Exposed wiring ran along the walls, multiple screens displayed constantly changing data, and the crew moved with urgent efficiency rather than ceremonial precision. "Captain on the bridge," announced Lieutenant Torres as Chun took her position in the command chair. "Status report," Chun ordered. "Both fleets are preparing for final engagement," reported Commander Hayes from the tactical station. "The Velthari are charging their collective energy weapon, Estimated time to firing approximately 8 minutes. The Kethmoran have formed defensive positions, but they're also moving those civilian evacuation ships into a potential crossfire zone. Chun studied the main display screen. The battle had evolved exactly as she had predicted. Both fleets were so focused on defeating each other that they had stopped paying attention to anything else. Marcus, what's the probability of civilian casualties if both fleets proceed with current tactics? The ship's artificial intelligence responded immediately. Calculating. Probability of significant civilian casualties is 87%. The evacuation ships will be caught between the Valthari energy pulse and the Kethmoran debris field when they attempt evasive maneuvers. And neither fleet has noticed? Their command systems are operating under combat protocols that prioritize tactical threats. Civilian vessels do not register as immediate concerns. Chun nodded grimly. This was exactly the problem with galactic warfare. It had become so ritualized and predictable, the commanders forgot to account for unexpected variables. "Those protocols are ready, Captain," reported Lieutenant Kim from the electronic warfare station. "All jamming systems online. Drone squadrons prepared for launch." "Helm, take us in," Chun ordered. Maximum acceleration directly between both fleets. On the observation deck of Concordia's Rest, pandemonium had broken out among the alien observers. "The human ship is heading straight into the battle zone," shouted Commander Vextai. "Are they attempting suicide?" Ambassador Dexara frantically tried to contact both fleet commanders, but their communication systems were locked down for combat operations. Standard protocol dictated that no outside signals could interfere with battle coordination. "This is unprecedented," muttered Dr. Zeflin, watching his instruments track the small human vessel. "No neutral observer has ever entered an active engagement zone." The Defiance plunged between the two massive fleets like a tiny missile. The ship was so small that most of the alien sensors barely registered its presence, dismissing it as space debris or a malfunction in their targeting systems. "Captain," reported Hayes, "we're receiving challenge signals from both fleets. They're demanding identification and immediate withdrawal." "Ignore them," Chun replied. "Kim, activate ghost protocols. Full spectrum jamming, but keep it subtle at first. I want both fleets to think their communication problems are equipment failures." Electronic warfare was almost unknown in galactic combat. Most civilizations considered it dishonorable to interfere with enemy communications. Battles were supposed to be won through superior tactics and technology, not by disrupting command systems. The Defiance began broadcasting on dozens of different frequencies simultaneously. The signals were carefully crafted to interfere with both alien communication systems without being obviously hostile. To the Kethmoran and Velthari commanders, it would seem like their own equipment was malfunctioning. "Jamming is effective," reported Kim. "Both fleets are experiencing communication delays and signal degradation." "Drone squadrons, launch," Chun ordered. Hundreds of small objects ejected from the Defiance and scattered in all directions. To the alien observers, they looked like escape pods or debris from a damaged ship. But these were human combat drones, each one equipped with advanced sensors and electronic warfare capabilities. The drones spread out through the battle zone, positioning themselves near key ships in both fleets. They were too small to be detected by standard military sensors, and their behavior patterns mimicked natural space phenomena like microasteroids or radiation fluctuations. "Drones in position," reported the drone coordinator. "Ready for coordinated operations." On the bridge of the Death's Honor, Fleet Commander Kester was growing frustrated. His communication systems kept experiencing random failures, and several of his ships were reporting targeting computer malfunctions. "Engineering, what is the status of our primary communication array?" he demanded. "Unknown, Commander." All systems show normal operation, but we're experiencing intermittent signal loss with 17 ships in the formation. Similar problems were occurring on the Light of Eternal Wisdom. The Valthari commander, known as Brightness that Pierces Shadow, was attempting to coordinate the final energy pulse attack, but her ships kept falling out of sync. "This is most peculiar," she communicated to her technical specialists. "Our energy matrices are stable, but the harmonic resonance keeps fluctuating." Neither commander realized that tiny human drones were interfering with their systems. The electronic warfare was so subtle that it seemed like random equipment failures rather than deliberate sabotage. "Time to get their attention," Chun announced. "All hands, prepare for aggressive maneuvering. Hayes, target both flagships with our communications array. Maximum power, all frequencies." The Defiance suddenly lit up every sensor in both fleets. The small human ship was broadcasting on every communication channel simultaneously, creating a cacophony of signals that overloaded both alien communication networks. "Attention fleet commanders." Chun's voice boomed across space in perfect Kethmoran and Valthari languages. "This is Captain Sarah Chun of the United Earthship Defiance. Civilian evacuation. Vessels are in your direct line of fire. Recommend immediate tactical adjustment to prevent casualties." Both fleet commanders were shocked. No observer had ever interrupted a formal battle engagement. The very idea was unthinkable according to galactic military tradition. Fleet Commander Kester's mandibles clicked angrily. "Human vessel, you are in violation of established combat protocols. Withdraw immediately or be considered a hostile target." Brightness that Pierces Shadow's response was equally indignant. "Small Earth ship, your presence dishonors this engagement. Remove yourself before you are destroyed." "Negative," Chun replied calmly. "Those evacuation ships contain 2,000 civilians. Your current tactical positions will result in their destruction. Stand down your weapons until they can be relocated." Both commanders checked their tactical displays and realized the human was correct. In their focus on the battle, they had allowed their formations to drift closer to the civilian vessels. But admitting this would be a tremendous loss of face. "The evacuation ships are not our concern," declared Kester. "They should not have remained in the combat zone. Our ancient conflict takes precedence over minor inconveniences," added Brightness that Pierces Shadow. "Honor demands completion of this engagement." Chun looked at her tactical display and saw that both fleets were continuing their attack preparations despite her warning. The Valthari energy weapon was nearly ready to fire, and the Kethmoran ships were tightening their defensive formation. "Wow," she said quietly to her crew. "I guess we do this the hard way." "Captain?" asked Hayes. "Kim, full electronic warfare protocols. I want both fleets blind and confused." "Hayes, target their flagship communication arrays with kinetic rounds. Disable only, no permanent damage. And get those civilian ships out of here." The Defiance suddenly erupted into furious activity. Electronic warfare signals flooded space, disrupting every system in both fleets. Kinetic projectiles struck the communication arrays of both flagships with surgical precision, disabling them without causing casualties. On the observation deck, the alien observers watched in total shock as the tiny human ship began systematically dismantling two of the galaxy's most powerful fleets without firing a single lethal shot. "What kind of warfare is this?" whispered Dr. Zeppelin. But Captain Chun was just getting started. Chaos erupted across both alien fleets as their communication systems collapsed under the human electronic assault. Ships that had operated in perfect coordination for centuries suddenly found themselves isolated and confused. "What is happening?" demanded Fleet Commander Kester as his bridge instruments flickered and died. "Engineering, restore communications immediately." His chief technician, a young Kethmoran named Zeekvol, frantically worked at his control station. "Commander, our systems are being jammed by signals I've never seen before. The interference patterns are completely random. They don't match any known electronic warfare doctrine." On the Velthari flagship, Brightness that pierces shadow was experiencing similar problems. Her ship's elegant energy matrices were fluctuating wildly as unknown signals disrupted their harmonic frequencies. "This is impossible," she communicated to her tactical specialist. "No civilization in the galaxy possesses jamming technology this sophisticated." The human drones continued their work throughout both fleets, each one operating independently while contributing to the overall chaos. Unlike the centralized command systems of the alien ships, the drones were programmed to adapt and improvise, making them nearly impossible to predict or counter. On the Defiance's bridge, Chun watched her tactical display with satisfaction. "Status report. Electronic warfare is fully effective," reported Kim. "Both fleets have lost formation integrity. Individual ships are attempting to re-establish communication, but our drones are adapting faster than their countermeasures." "Civilian evacuation?" Hayes checked his screen. "Evacuation ships are being escorted clear of the combat zone by our drones. They should reach safety within 10 minutes. "Good. Now for the next phase. Marcus, activate the psychological warfare protocols." The ship's artificial intelligence had been studying both alien species since the battle began, analyzing their communication patterns, stress responses, and command hierarchies. "Protocols ready, Captain. I've identified specific psychological pressure points for both species." Chun activated the ship's external communication array, but this time the signals were different. Instead of jamming, the Defiance began broadcasting carefully crafted messages designed to exploit the fears and prejudices of both alien civilizations to the Kethmoran ships. The broadcast contained audio files that sounded like their ancient enemy, the Velthari, laughing at their military incompetence. But the voices were slightly wrong, just different enough to seem suspicious to the Velthari vessels. The signals carried mathematical equations that appeared to be Kethmoran battle plans, but with subtle errors that suggested the insectoid species was using dishonorable tactics. "Both fleets are responding to the psychological pressure," reported the communications officer. "We're detecting increased stress indicators and growing suspicion between their ships." Chun nodded. Human military doctrine had evolved from centuries of warfare on a single world where resources were limited and survival depended on outwitting opponents rather than overpowering them. Psychological warfare was as natural to humans as breathing. Fleet Commander Kesther was studying the intercepted Velthari transmissions with growing anger. "These energy beings mock our honor while using forbidden weapons against our communication systems. They have violated every rule of civilized warfare." He didn't realize that the transmissions were fake, created by human computers that had learned to mimic Velthari communication patterns. To his insectoid mind, trained to recognize patterns and follow established protocols, the deception was invisible. Meanwhile, Brightness that pierces shadow was analyzing what appeared to be Kethmoran tactical data. "The insect creatures are planning to use kinetic bombardment against our energy matrices. This is a violation of the ancient accords. They seek to destroy us through trickery rather than honorable combat." She also failed to recognize the human deception. The Velthari were creatures of pure logic and mathematics, and the fabricated battle plans contained just enough accurate tactical theory to seem genuine. "Captain," reported Hayes, "both fleets are beginning to target each other with increasing aggression. Their formal combat protocols are breaking down." Chun smiled grimly. "Perfect. Now we move to Phase 3. Prepare boarding teams." The bridge crew looked surprised. The Defiance was tiny compared to the alien flagships, and a direct assault seemed impossible. "Ma'am," ventured Lieutenant Torres, "our ship doesn't have the capability for traditional boarding operations." "Who said anything about traditional?" Chun replied. "Marcus, show them the infiltration plan." The main screen displayed a three-dimensional map of both flagships, with detailed schematics showing ventilation systems, maintenance tunnels, and other access points. "Human boarding doctrine doesn't rely on brute force," Chine explained. "We use stealth, misdirection, and surprise. Small teams will infiltrate both ships simultaneously, not to capture them, but to create maximum confusion." Within minutes, 2 small shuttles launched from the Defiance. They were barely visible on sensors, designed to look like pieces of battle debris floating through space. Each shuttle carried 6 human soldiers, equipped with advanced stealth technology and electronic warfare equipment. The shuttles approached the alien flagships from different angles, taking advantage of the chaos to slip through their defensive perimeters unnoticed. Human military training emphasized individual initiative and adaptability, allowing small teams to operate independently in hostile environments. The first team reached the death's honor and used plasma cutters to create an entry point in an unused cargo bay. The Kethmoran ship's security systems were designed to detect large-scale assaults, not tiny infiltration teams. The second team accessed the light of eternal wisdom through a maintenance port near the ship's energy core. The Volthari vessel's defenses focused on energy-based attacks, leaving them vulnerable to physical infiltration. Both teams immediately began their work. Instead of trying to capture the ships, they focused on creating confusion and disruption. Computer viruses were planted in secondary systems. False maintenance alerts were triggered throughout both vessels, and communication networks were further compromised. On the Death's Honor, Fleet Commander Kester was dealing with cascading system failures. "Report," he demanded. "Unknown, Commander. We're experiencing malfunctions throughout the ship. Life support is fluctuating. Artificial gravity is unstable in 7 sections. And our weapon targeting systems are showing phantom targets." The human infiltration team was working its way through the ship's maintenance areas, using their knowledge of alien psychology to create maximum disruption with minimal actual damage. They triggered fire suppression systems in empty corridors, activated emergency lockdown protocols in non-essential areas, and generally made the crew feel like their ship was falling apart. Similar chaos was spreading through the light of eternal wisdom. The Velthari crew was frantically trying to maintain their energy matrices as random power. Fluctuations cascaded through their systems. "Our harmonic resonance is completely destabilized," reported the chief engineer. "I'm detecting unauthorized access to our secondary control networks." The human teams were careful never to endanger the alien crews. Their goal was psychological disruption, not actual harm. But to the aliens, who were used to predictable, honorable warfare, the experience was terrifying. "Captain," Hayes reported from the Defiance, "both infiltration teams are reporting mission success. Fleet cohesion in both alien forces is approaching 0. Through the observation windows of Concordia's rest, the gathered alien species watched in stunned silence as 2 of the galaxy's most powerful military forces descended into complete chaos. Ships were firing randomly. Communication was non-existent. And both fleets seemed to be disintegrating without any clear explanation. "This is impossible," whispered Dr. Zeflin. "How can one small ship cause this much disruption?" Ambassador Dexara was trying to understand what she was witnessing. "The humans aren't following any known combat doctrine. They're not trying to defeat the fleets. They're trying to make them defeat themselves," finished Commander Vextai, his voice filled with awe and horror. On the bridge of the Defiance, Chun was preparing for the final phase of her plan. The civilian ships were safe, both alien fleets were neutralized, and the ancient conflict was about to end in a way that no one had expected. "Open a channel to both fleet commanders," she ordered. "It's time to have a conversation." The communication channel crackled to life as Captain Chun's voice reached both alien flagships simultaneously. The electronic warfare had stopped, and an eerie calm settled over the battlefield. "Fleet Commander Kester, brightness that pierces shadow, this is Captain Sarah Chun of the U.East Defiance. I believe we need to talk." On the Death's Honor, Fleet Commander Kester stared at his communication screen in disbelief. His mighty warship was crippled, his fleet was scattered, and somehow a single human vessel was responsible for it all. "What have you done to my ships?" he demanded, his mandibles clicking with fury and confusion. "Brightness that pierces shadows." Response came through the same channel. Her harmonic voice filled with mathematical precision that barely contained her shock. "Human Captain, explain this unprecedented attack on our forces. Your actions violate every principle of galactic warfare." Chun's response was calm and measured. "I haven't attacked anyone. I've simply demonstrated that your approach to warfare is outdated and dangerous. While you were focused on destroying each other according to ancient traditions, 2,000 civilians nearly died. The evacuation ships were not our responsibility," protested Kester. "Combat protocols clearly state that neutral vessels should clear the engagement zone before battle begins." "And yet, they didn't," Chun replied. "When your protocols failed to account for reality, people were going to die. So we adapted." Brightness that pierces shadow's voice carried a note of intellectual curiosity despite her anger. "Your tactics are unknown to us. How did you disable our communications and infiltrate our vessels without causing casualties?" "Because we weren't trying to defeat you," Chun explained. "We were trying to save lives and end a pointless conflict. Human military doctrine is based on achieving objectives with minimal destruction, not on following traditional combat rituals." On the observation deck of Concordia's Rest, the assembled alien representatives listened to the conversation with growing amazement. Nothing like this had ever happened in recorded galactic history. Dr. Zeflin was frantically taking notes. "This is revolutionary. The humans didn't try to win the battle. They tried to make the battle meaningless." Ambassador Dex Ara was studying her instruments with confusion. "According to our sensors, the human ship never fired a single shot intended to kill. All their attacks were focused on systems and equipment, not personnel." Fleet Commander Kester was slowly realizing the implications of what had happened. "You could have destroyed both our fleets if you had wanted to." "Probably," Chun admitted. "But that wasn't the point. Destruction is easy. Any species can build bigger weapons and stronger ships. The hard part is finding solutions that actually solve problems instead of creating new ones." "But our honor demanded resolution through combat," protested Brightness that pierces shadow. "This conflict has raged for 3,000 years. It cannot be ended without proper victory." Chun's laugh was heard throughout both fleets. 3,000 years of fighting over mining rights to a nebula? Do you even remember what you were originally fighting about? Both commanders fell silent. The truth was that the original dispute had been forgotten long ago, replaced by abstract concepts of honor, tradition, and ancient grievances. "Look at your tactical displays," Chun continued. "Both your fleets are damaged and scattered. Your communication systems are compromised, your crews are demoralized, and your combat effectiveness is zero. If this had been a real war, you would both be dead right now." The brutal honesty of her assessment cut through millennia of military tradition. Both alien commanders were forced to confront the fact that their ancient ways of warfare had made them completely vulnerable to an opponent who thought differently. "What do you propose?" asked Kester quietly. "Simple," Chun replied. End your conflict. Share the nebula mining rights. Use the resources to build something useful instead of bigger weapons. And next time you have a disagreement, try talking before shooting. The humans speak wisdom, admitted brightness that pierces shadow after a long pause. Our logic matrices confirm that continued conflict serves no useful purpose. Fleet Commander Kessler was harder to convince. And what of honor? What of tradition? Honor comes from protecting those who cannot protect themselves, Chan said firmly. Tradition that prevents you from adapting to new situations isn't tradition, it's stubbornness. Your ancestors started this fight to protect their people's future. Ending it serves the same purpose. The human infiltration teams had quietly withdrawn from both flagships, leaving behind no evidence of their presence except disabled weapon systems and confused crew members. The electronic warfare had stopped completely, allowing both fleets to slowly restore their communication networks. On Concordia's rest, the alien observers were engaged in intense discussions. What they had witnessed challenged everything they thought they knew about warfare, conflict resolution, and military capability. The humans have no significant fleet, muttered Commander Vextai. Their ship looks like it was built from spare parts. How did they achieve this level of tactical superiority? Dr. Zeppelin was reviewing his data recordings. They didn't rely on technological advantages. They used psychology, deception, and adaptation. It's a completely different approach to problem solving. Ambassador Dex_Arrow was composing an urgent message to the Galactic Council. This incident will need to be studied extensively. The humans may represent a new paradigm in galactic politics. Both alien fleets had begun the slow process of regrouping and assessing their situation. The Kethmoran ships were running diagnostic checks on their systems, while the Velthari vessels were attempting to reharmonize their energy matrices. Captain Chun, came brightness that pierces shadow's voice over the communication channel. Your species intrigues us. We would be honored to learn more about human approaches to conflict resolution. And the Kethmoran Empire acknowledges the effectiveness of your tactics, added Fleet Commander Kessler, though his pride was clearly wounded. Perhaps our military academies could benefit from studying your methods. Chun smiled, though neither alien could see her expression. We'd be happy to share what we've learned. But remember, the goal isn't to become better at fighting. The goal is to make fighting unnecessary. The Defiance began moving away from the battlefield, its mission complete. The civilian evacuation ships had reached safety. Both alien fleets were intact. And an ancient conflict had been ended without a single death. Captain, reported Hayes, we're receiving communication requests from dozens of alien vessels. News organizations, military observers, even some government representatives. Tell them we'll be happy to discuss human military philosophy at the appropriate diplomatic channels, Chun replied. Right now, we have a report to write for Earth Command. As the human ship departed, both alien fleets began the complex process of standing down from battle readiness. For the first time in 3,000 years, Kethmoran and Velthari vessels shared the same space without exchanging hostile fire. 6 months later, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session to address what became known as the human incident. Military academies throughout the galaxy began studying human tactical theory. Though few species could fully adapt to such flexible and unpredictable methods, the mining rights to the disputed nebula were eventually shared between the former enemies, who discovered that cooperation was far more profitable than conflict. The resources extracted were used to build research facilities and cultural exchange centers rather than weapons. Captain Sarah Chun was promoted to Admiral and tasked with establishing the first human military academy outside the Sol system. Her lectures on adaptive tactics and psychological warfare became required study for military officers throughout the galaxy. But the most significant change was in galactic attitudes toward conflict resolution. The idea that wars could be ended without victory or defeat. That honor could be found in protection rather than destruction. And that true strength came from restraint rather than overwhelming force, began to spread throughout civilized space and somewhere in the outer rim territories. A small human fleet continued its patrol, watching, learning, and quietly ensuring that the galaxy's approach to problem-solving evolved beyond the ancient patterns of ritual warfare. The galaxy had learned that humanity didn't just fight differently. They thought differently. And that difference was about to change everything.